Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Turning Techies into Leaders. And today I'm joined by Chis, who is someone that I've met in my network over the last couple months and is someone that really kind of inspired me with this new upcoming company that he's creating. But I'll let you introduce yourself and a little bit about your company first.
So my name is Thijs, based in the Netherlands. I'm currently setting up a one-man agency since last July, March actually, called TBD Solutions. Not only because of the pun in the name, but also because it stands for Thijs Bongertman Data Solutions. Um, Basically, I'm still searching for my brand identity, but from a historical point of view, I'm a fractional data leader and also analytics engineer for hire with quite a long past in the whole marketing data domain.
Yeah. And when we first met, what really captured my attention in our conversation was that you have this really deep understanding of, data, machine learning, AI, and you're now taking that skill set and branching out on your own. What led you to do that?
Uh, Partially, so maybe as a piece of context, I've been active in the data domain now for the last 10 years, and I've always had the desire to build something by myself, to build an agency, to build out and help people create value for different companies. But I've always had this feeling of, some would say it's an imposter syndrome. I would say that it's the feeling that you don't know enough about all of the domains within data because it's too much to grasp for one
Mhm.
person almost. I would say. Um, but last year, earlier this year, something happened that basically kickstarted the whole thing, which is we moved back to the Netherlands, my family and I, and the company that I was working with, uh, where I also got to know you, didn't necessarily support full remote working, and they
Mhm.
were based in Germany. Hence, I had a soft start as a freelancer. Um, and what I'm seeing now with all of the insights created over the last couple of years, especially when you go down a path of leadership, you get to know a bunch of people, a lot of different people with a lot of different opinions, challenges, knowledge, and also experience. And combining all of those into a proposition is really interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, you touched on something earlier, the imposter syndrome element. Has that come up a lot for you as you started this venture? And what do you think about that in general?
Uh, yeah, you always have to be careful with the term imposter syndrome because also sometimes it's also just a, a fake means of looking humble, so to
Yeah.
say, which you see a lot on LinkedIn nowadays. But yeah, whenever you see, especially in freelancing, I mean, I've seen a lot of companies over the last couple of years, but now as a freelancer, you're talking with a lot of people. For example, I was in a sales pipeline for this project where I was pitching to set up basically a data warehouse from scratch, which I've done before, but also always uh, within a boundary, so within a well-defined tech stack with well-defined technology, software, and whatever. And this was the first time I was really looking into a company that had no clue what to do, had no preference. They only had a budget. So I was really reaching out to other people that I know have a lot of technical understanding of how to do this. What is the best uh, tool for the job? And yeah, I had so many epiphany moments and eye openers in within a week. Uh, I've I didn't experience that in the last 3 to 4 years, to be very honest with you. It was kind of mind blowing
Did
and
you find that
humbling.
exciting? Or was that something that was exciting, or was it kind of a little bit more scary? Because I mean, I would see that
I
as
mean,
like, holy crap, but also a great opportunity.
yeah, exactly, and it is a combination of both. Uh, it's the realization that especially in the data domain, and I know it's the same for all other software environments, but you should never stop learning. And I think that's maybe also one of the key elements in my whole journey so far, including the freelancing journey. And whenever you feel like your learning is slowing down, then just get out of the comfort zone. And that's what I did with freelancing. And the holy shit moments or the holy crap moments, they came quick and they came often. And I thought I was an expert in the domain where I was in. Basically, people asking me questions about how to move forward, which direction should their career take. But then you realize, yeah, you don't know anything, which is fine if you're in a company somewhere because you can surround yourself with experts that are uh, really the experts in their field. But now as a freelancer, I sometimes begrudgingly have to admit that something really isn't fit to my skill set. But that's also fine because you know the people that have the skill set.
I'm assuming, but obviously, if you're just everything to everybody, then you'll end up being nothing to everybody, right? At a certain point, there's an element there where you can't do everything for everybody. You don't have that skill set. You kind of have to niche down into what it is that you, one, enjoy, two, are really good at, and three, know that you can provide value because that's essentially what your brand becomes. There's no, you don't want to be failing left and right in this kind of space. I would assume again.
Yeah. As long as your goal is to actually do stuff and provide value yourself. I mean, as a recruiting consultant or a business coach, I think you
Hmm.
would be fine not being able to do anything yourself and just connect people. I think I know a lot of people that are making good money by just connecting people, and then it's fine to know what you don't know. But agree, if you really want to achieve something, and that's also part of the reason that I went for freelancing career, to code again, to build things, then you really need to find your niche,
Hmm.
unfortunately.
What would you say has been your biggest learning, if we're on the topic of learning, in the last handful of months since you've really kind of embraced this freelancing? If we compare that to the corporate world that you were in before, right? The full stack company that has everything.
Uh, it's the realization that good things take a lot of time. Um, so whenever you're in a company, especially as a data person, and you're within an architecture, within a project, or within maybe a work stream, a lot has been defined already, and you're actually working on a small piece of the puzzle. Uh,
Mhm.
but it has already been defined which software you use. It has already been defined what the outcome should look like, what the business goal is, how the vision looks like, and um, I've come across a couple of companies now in the last couple of months already. Sometimes with a successful sales pipeline, so I'm working together with some companies, and sometimes not so much. But they really have no clue. The world of data, and I know you worked at Wayfair. It's crazy how advanced companies like Wayfair, Free, and let alone the Ubers and Airbnbs of this world. It's crazy how advanced they are with the whole data
Mhm.
thing going on. And one thing that I really realized is that I should not be aiming to help companies that are of the same caliber of the companies that both you and I worked, because it doesn't make any sense. They
Mhm.
have internal
Yeah.
talent, they have knowledge, they know where to go. It's really about helping everyone below to realize what is possible out there, because there are
Yeah.
so many people, so many companies still building their whole, let's say, main company dashboard, their main insights, their main strategy on some connected Google Sheets or weekly updated CSV files or something that is really not optimized.
Yeah.
But that takes time. It takes time to realize, it takes time to not get frustrated, because if I would have gone freelancing with the same mindset as when I was working at a big corporate still, then I
Hmm.
would have been stressed out
Hmm.
and frustrated a long time ago.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
was quite interesting.
Yeah, I think what you said there is very true. I mean, the big companies can have those internal, they have the funding, they can hire their own people. And I think that there's this, I mean, I'm taking a stab, I'm putting a number out there, but I would say that somewhere in the region of 70% of companies in the world are still very much Excel based databases, essentially, right? You got all these companies out there, mom and pop
Most.
shops, 10 employees. There's no data warehouse. They're not on the cloud. They're using G Sheets. They're using Excel. They're using to run their business. And probably spending a significant amount of money and time to do that as well. And I think there's a huge niche there that may or may never be tapped into.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I would say that for half of those companies, it's fine, right? They
Mhm.
can keep doing everything on Excel. They can keep using G Sheets. It's fine.
Mhm.
Also, me as a uh, sole person agency, I'm
Yeah.
not using Snowflake for
No.
my CRM
No, of
database.
course not.
I'm using some random Excel to track my hours. Um, and also, people underestimate the power of G Sheets and Excel
Mhm.
visualizations. It's easy to grasp, it's easy to adjust, and it's fine
Yeah.
for a lot of companies. But as soon as you, I was talking about this yesterday with someone who was also a founder, but he's a little bit more mature. They had hyper growth from 2 to 14, so 7 times growth in the last
Mhm.
6 months. And it was really like, yeah, it's time for me to think about business processes. And
Mm.
it's interesting to realize that not all of the companies have that realization. They think, it's fine like this. I'm going to keep the G Sheets working
Yep.
and I'll keep doing what I was doing. Um, but in some cases, you might need some outside information or talent or, yeah, inspiration, basically.
Yeah. And there's no answer to what that number is. Like I mean, it's interesting that the person would hear
No,
it 14 people, but I think you get to a certain point where when you have too many people that can have access to changing numbers or changing data or creating something, you're bound to create an error somewhere, right? And so I think that's part of it is how do
yeah,
you, even at 14, it may not be that you have a snowflake environment, but it could be that there are certain, only, okay, this sheet can only be edited by this one person. This sheet, so you still create this ownership. So in your point, like processes doesn't have to
exactly.
be got a full stack development. It could just be some basic rules in place. Because I mean, otherwise, you
Uh,
need to be thinking that what if this company does get to 150, 200, 300 people? If you don't have these rules now, you're going to be
Yeah,
rebuilding things from scratch 5 years from now, which is also quite expensive.
exactly. And to connect to what you were saying, I think as an analyst or as a company or as a stakeholder at that point in time that you're spending more time discussing differences between two numbers than you're
Hmm.
actually discussing what those numbers mean and what actions they lead to. I think
Hmm.
that's kind of the inflection point that you should say, hey, maybe we need someone fixing our data governance, fixing our data quality, and just putting up a data warehouse out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you do that before it gets too late. Like, there's some large companies
Hopefully,
out there that
yes.
are spending a significant amount of time discussing discrepancies between numbers. And by that point, that fix isn't just as simple as 2 weeks, it's years, years of going back and rebuilding and things like that. I mean, you see many stories out there in the market about 3-year migration efforts and things like that that are just incredibly costly.
And it's also, yeah, it's an interesting base for another discussion because I know we only have 20 minutes today, but it also requires from a data team and from a data leader some flexibility and speed because as soon as you're uh, being too rigid, people will find their own way in getting the numbers that they are searching for, uh, and then you're in a big pile of trouble because then once you get to a certain project, once you get to implementing a metric or a dimension, or as you said, migrating a whole database 6 months,
Mm.
people will have their own habits, and then you
Mhm.
will get challenged.
And they'll find their own, yeah, to your point, they'll find their workaround, which can even slow you down even
Yeah.
further. So, um,
Yes.
No, let me bring us to a topic that's a little bit maybe passionate for both of us as we kind of build our own side freelance. Your freelance, mine's a little bit more of a side hustle, but this concept of posting on LinkedIn every day. I know for me, it's something that I'm like,
Mhm.
what do I talk about today? What do I write today? I know we've had many conversations about that in the past. Uh, Share your most recent thought that you had that we talked a little bit before the call.
Uh, yeah, my most recent thought, which was actually posted 10 minutes before this meeting started, is that I don't like posting on LinkedIn anymore. Um,
Yeah,
not
me too.
because the yeah, not because the network itself is polluted, or yeah, maybe also, because there's right now in the bubble that we live in, which is the bubble of people trying to build a personal brand.
Yep.
There's pressure to uh, be consistent, which is fine. Which is not fine is that the consistency means in 80-90% of the cases to push daily content out on the
Mhm.
internet. And I've been talking to a lot of people already, and then they tell me, yeah, I'll create all my content on the Friday afternoon, and I'm gonna plan it for the upcoming 2 months, and it's gonna be fine. And but then then the question is, but why? Is it
Mhm.
high quality content? Is it the content that people are waiting for? Is it did you think about what you actually want to write, or is it just a couple of buzzwords into ChatGPT or Claude, and then spitting out an article? And then I mean, you can recognize them very easily, right? It's all about the fixed white spaces. You start with a problem, then you start with
Yep.
with how someone solved it for themselves, the 5 tips of how to become
Yep.
an unsung hero within a super big ride-hailing company, and always ending with uh, a challenging question that no one cares about.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. With a
that's,
request
I
to
mean,
tell me your experiences. Yeah,
and then
there's a thousand templates on there, right?
yeah,
Nowadays.
yeah, and then the actual good content is hidden in between. Uh, yeah, the let's say the generated content. So yeah, what I decided basically today is to use my phone a little bit more whenever I have some time and headspace, and just start dictating. We have a
Mhm.
dog, so I'm outside for at least 1.5 hours a day. So then just my brain farts start
Yeah.
going into my phone, and get transcripted, uh, which is a very nice functionality of technology nowadays. And then I try to get it into a post
Hmm.
on Substack now, mainly because I like um, Substack more for how you can put some layouts and headers in between your text and images. It's way more flexible than LinkedIn,
Yeah. Yeah.
and let's see where that goes.
Yeah.
But I think
I think
yeah,
you're
the
also
whole sorry, yeah, the
no.
whole idea and notion behind brand building is something that I it's a necessity if you
Mhm.
go freelance or want to have a side hustle that is significant. But it's crazy that we live in a world where this is needed.
Yeah, and it's becoming way more apparent, I would say, in the last 6, 7 months here. As the proliferation of AI started coming out, writing became significantly easier, right? I type a prompt, it writes me
Yeah,
something. I think that used to be a barrier to many people, which is like, well, I don't know what to write. I don't know how to write. I don't think my stuff is good. Now I can write garbage, put it into Claude or ChatGPT, ask it to rewrite it for me, or even LinkedIn on its own will do some AI rewriting for you, and
yeah,
then you can kind of go from there. So that barrier to entry for good content disappeared, which I think is why we're seeing a lot more of like, hey, I can post daily. I can schedule it. I can write 5 posts in 30 minutes and schedule my week and I'm done. I'm doing my part.
yeah,
When in reality, to a certain point, like I wonder sometimes, am I doing damage to my own brand by posting something that may or may not? And what is my own brand? And what should my own brand be? And what am I, what's the value? It's an interesting concept as we see.
Yes, and what might be even more interesting is that this good content, or at least the high frequent content, um, I have a temper. It's what my wife always tells me, and it agitated me to such a degree that I decided to start writing, even though I didn't write anything since I was in high school. Well,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
code and emails and all presentations, and
sure.
the higher you go in leadership, the more presentations you have to make, but not like down to earth, real articles. I haven't done that in the last at least 10 years since
Yeah,
my master thesis, and now I'm all of a sudden doing it because of all of the garbage on LinkedIn, and it is
yeah.
inspiring me to, yeah, create a different voice, even though no one will probably ever read it ever.
But
Well, maybe you.
again, we're in that industry where if two, three people read it, they connect with it and they reach out and you get a contract out of it or you build a connection out of it that helps you. I mean, whichever way, I think it's almost like that. You look at it and go, if I can get 2% of my followers to engage with my content, well, maybe one of them becomes a client and I can generate, a couple $1,000 out of it. That's kind of the mentality that we're all approaching this with, but at a certain point, I mean,
Also stand out, but
yeah.
yeah,
So,
also an interesting topic.
cognizant of time, and I, promise all everyone to keep it under 20. We're at 22 minutes, but that's okay. It's been a great conversation. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you think is something that you want to share today?
Uh, Not today. I want to keep some content for next editions. So yeah, I learned from content creation.
Great. Well, I mean, I'm truly grateful for the time that you've given me today. I think that you're a fantastic data individual. I know your freelance company is going to do well, and I hope that through this podcast we're able to generate some sort of to people to see your personality and style of working. I think, but firstly, thank you again, and yeah, wish you the best.